How's it going, everyone? This video, I wanted to show you guys how you can fit your vocals to a 2-track instrumental and kind of have it, blended into the beat very nicely. The concept is fairly simple in that you just really need to create kind of a pocket for your vocals within the instrumental. And sometimes it's a little bit easier and sometimes it's a little bit harder depending on the song and depending if you have a beat or the track outs. So in this case, I only have the instrumental and I don't have the tracked out stems. If you have the stems of the beat, it's going to make it a little bit easier because you can kind of carve out frequencies within certain instruments that might be clashing with the vocals. But in this case, we just have the beat. So we're going to try to make a little pocket in the instrumental itself. And there's a few ways you can go about doing this. And the first way is you want to carve out frequencies within EQ. You want to EQ out certain frequencies to the beat, and you want to boost frequencies within the vocal that are not clashing with each other. So the first thing I like to do is, let's say I have my verse right here, and I'm going to play a little snippet of it before we actually get started. Artist is DJ Ghost, and I will link the song in the description.
Blunt sound, do the vaping. Hit my Range Rover with that beat banging. I'm getting money, that's an understatement. So I bust down my jewelry just to make a statement. To make it clear, I make a move with no hesitation. Up in different states, got me bag chasing.
Okay, so that's a little snippet of the song that we're working with. And the first thing I like to do is I use a plugin called Center, and this is from Waves plugins, but you don't necessarily need this. You can do some of this with EQ as well. But this plugin is cool because you can set your low frequencies to sit in the center versus the sides. So essentially what these are doing is just taking your frequency ranges and putting them to either the center or the side of your stereo field. And then right here, you can actually control the volume of your center region and the sides. So what I like to do is I actually turn down the center a little bit and I turn up the sides. And what this does is it kind of creates a little pocket for your vocals within the instrumental. And I usually have my vocals sitting dead center, meaning your vocals are mono always, unless you're purposefully making them stereo and sitting in the side. For the most part, they are dead center. So I like to turn down the center knob a little bit. So that definitely creates a little pocket for it. And then I boost up the sides. And then, so that allows the vocal to kind of sit dead center in the mix. And then the second thing is that you really do need a nice, consistent sounding vocal that has nice compression to it. And I like to use some parallel compression. And I'm going to go over that in a little bit. But first, I just give it a little EQ. Just roll off some of the low end. You click your little high pass right there. And then I rolled off about 95 hertz. And I actually used a Slate Digital compressor, but I'm going to show you guys with a stock compressor because you might not have those plugins. So with this compressor, I click Studio FET because this is emulating an 1176 compressor, which I love on vocals. And the settings I use are ratio at 4:1, attack, I put it at 200, so a very slow attack to let in those transients because I like my vocals to sound very punchy and in your face. So I give it a slow attack. And then the release is on the quicker side, around 16 milliseconds. You can kind of play with that. And essentially, a slow attack and quick release is going to put your vocals up front, and it's going to sound super punchy. And if that's what you're going for, you can use a slow attack and a quick release. So that's my compressor. And I'll show you how much I'm knocking off.
Blunt sound, do the vaping. Hit my Range Rover with that beat banging. I'm getting money, that's an understatement.
So you're going to want to mess with your threshold until you're knocking off no more than like 5 dBs, give or take. You don't want to knock off too much. And then what I'm doing over here is giving it some parallel compression. And essentially what I do is I send it to a bus. And this is what I do. So this is my verse track right here. See, it says verse. And then I go down to here where it says sends. And I send it to really any bus that you're not using. So I sent it to bus number 2. And then it created this bus down here. And then I named that parallel. And so what I'm doing over here is I'm using this compressor called MJuck Jr. And this is a free plugin. If you watch my other video, top 5 free plugins, you can go check this one out. It's a really good sounding compressor. And what I do is I set it to a fast time constant. and I compress the hell out of it. So watch what it's doing right here.
Blunts, I don't do the vaping. In my Range Rover with that beat banging. I'm getting money, that's an understatement. So I bust down.
So I'm compressing the hell out of this, but what I'm doing is I'm lowering the volume on this bus send, because we have our track right here. This is our verse track, and we are sending it with full signal. We're sending it to this parallel channel right here. And in this parallel channel, we're doing that heavy compression. And then I'm also putting on a little multi-band compression to kind of boost up the high end and compress it. And then I'm limiting it.
Blunts, I don't do the vaping. In my Range Rover with that beat bang.
So you throw a limiter after you compress it. And then what you do is you grab your volume knob and you blend it in, because what this essentially is it's a super compressed signal. It's a super compressed duplicate of your original vocal. So you have your original vocal and basically a duplicate copy of that, but that copy is getting compressed the hell out of. And then what you're doing is you're blending that compressed track with your original. And what that does is it gives you a really consistent sounding, upfront, nicely compressed sounding vocal without it being too heavy or too much. So I really love doing parallel compression, and this is how I get vocals to sit in the mix, sit in the 2-track instrumental perfectly. And then both of these are being outputted to another bus, which I'm calling all vocals. So as you can see, my output right here is being sent to bus number 1, which I have all vocals. And my parallel channel is also being outputted to the same bus, which is all vocals. And then right here, this is where they get outputted to, and I'm just adding a little bit of EQ. And so this is where we kind of carve that little pocket with the frequencies and using EQ. So what I'm doing here is, and this is also a free EQ plugin as well. I will link the video in the description if you want to go check out this plugin. It's a really good EQ plugin. So this is my vocal channel, all vocals. And then we have an EQ right here. And what I'm doing is I'm boosting the vocals at 2.5K. And I put the same exact EQ plugin. However, I put it on my instrumental track. And what we're doing here is I'm boosting the frequencies on my vocal at 2.5, and on the instrumental, I'm removing those same frequencies at 2.5 by a little bit. And then vice versa, on the vocals, I'm removing some frequencies at 640 hertz and boosting it on the instrumental. Now the idea with this is you're creating that pocket by boosting the frequencies on the vocals and removing those same frequencies on the instrumental. That's how you create that pocket. And it's not always going to be at 2.5K or 640 hertz. I'm just giving you an example with this vocal. So I'm going to remove them and see if you can tell if there's a difference. It's going to be very subtle, but it definitely creates some space for the vocals. So this is without.
Blunts, I don't do the vaping. In my Range Rover with that beat banging. I'm getting money, that's an understatement. So I bust down my jewelry just to make a statement. Blunts, I don't do the vaping. In my Range Rover with that beat banging. I'm getting money, that's an understatement. So
it's kind of hard to tell the difference, but these little tricks kind of add up when you carve out some frequencies and you remove the center volume. It definitely creates a little pocket for your vocals, and it's not so much about doing one thing that's going to create a pocket in your vocals. It's all these little moves that kind of add up. But essentially, you want to get a good compressed signal of your vocals, and that's what we're doing here with the Studio FET compressor, getting a good solid compression off the bat, and then we're parallel compressing it by sending it to a bus right here, parallel. And then we're kind of blending that in so you get a good compressed signal without it overkilling it too much. And then right here on our all vocals channel, you see this is where our verse is getting outputted to our all vocals bus right here, bus number 1. And this is where we're kind of carving out those frequencies and making it really sit inside the instrumental. So all I'm doing again is I'm boosting it at 2.5K and then removing some at 640 hertz. And if you're trying to visualize this with an EQ, basically what I'm doing with these vocals is I'm giving it a little bit of boost right around here at 2.5K, and then I'm kind of removing some at around 640. So if you were trying to visualize this, this is kind of what I'm doing with an EQ. Just kind of boosting a little bit and then cutting out. And then on the instrumental, I do the exact opposite of this. So on the instrumental track, I take that same 640 hertz that was right here with the vocal, and on the instrumental, we would boost it a little bit, and then on the vocals, on the instrumental, we would cut it. So you just want to do the opposite, basically, to create that little pocket. And you're going to have to mess with the frequency ranges. Sometimes it's not going to be at 2.5K. Sometimes maybe it'll be up here that you want to boost on the vocal. And then sometimes it'll be over here that you want to boost. But just remember, if you're trying to boost somewhere on the vocals, you want to take some out on the instrumental or your beat. Let's say you have tracked out instrumentals. You would want to take some of this out on instruments. You're basically just think of it like you're carving out a little pocket for your vocals through the instrumental or through your beat. And that's basically the idea of it. And another thing that I find to make it a little bit easier to fit your beat in an instrumental is not going crazy on the reverb unless you're totally going for that sound and you want tons of reverb. That's totally fine. But if you're working with like rap vocals and you're trying to get them to sit in the mix, don't go too heavy on the reverb, because it'll be much easier to keep that vocal consistent and sounding very upfront, and it'll be easier to have it blend and sounds like it fits in the instrumental. Hopefully you guys learned something in this, and please leave a comment if you have any questions, and I'll try to get back to you. And thank you guys for watching.